Today we will be discussing Livor Mortis. Postmortem, which means after death. There are many different chemical changes just as well as many physical changes. Time, which we will go over in terms of how it relates to Livor Mortis and what happens during the beginning of early decomp. So, define what Livor Mortis is. In an abstract way, Livor Mortis is kind of the settling of the blood in the body depending on how the body is laying. So gravity pulls the blood down towards the ground. In depth, this is a gravity settling of the blood in the body and dependent parts after circulation stopped after death. It causes this reddish purplish tint all over to appear, and it can be more saturated or less saturated depending on how long the body's been in that position, which we will go over time and how it shows up in just a second. Here are some images. I know it's kind of sensitive, but you can see on this one that the Livor Mortis is pretty light on the lower back and upper shoulders. This one also was on their back, and you can see that there's some blanching spots as well. But this is how it typically appears if someone has been on their back or for how long, something like that. Livor Mortis can begin as early as 20 to 30 minutes after death. So once the blood stops circulating, it can begin pretty early. Within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you can see Livor Mortis beginning to appear. After this time, it continues and it can become very saturated and more noticeable within 8 to 12 hours. And at this time, at the 12-hour mark, lividity is there. There's no way to go back from it. No matter what position you turn the body in, it's going to be there, and it's going to be more prominent, kind of like in this photo shown here, where it's more purple, where the gravity has pulled the blood more towards the bottom, and you still have this reddish color all on here as the body is laying flat. Okay, so how does Livor Mortis affect embalming? This is a big one because many would assume that with different arterial fluids within the embalming mixture that you could easily get the color of Livor Mortis out, but that's not true. The color does vary in terms of Livor Mortis, so you could have more purple or more red depending on how long the body has been there. You can use different embalming fluids like 1 point, different dyes, restore tone to add different colors depending on skin tone and how saturated the body is with the Livor Mortis. But with this, it's also harder to, essentially take away the way Livor Mortis is appearing on the body. No matter how hard you push embalming fluid, it's really not gonna go away completely as the blood is already settled. One way to help this is if you elevate the head above the heart, you can use gravity to your advantage to push the fluids down, and it can also help in their appearance. Your positioning as well also aids in this. And besides embalming, you could also use, different cosmetics like airbrushing or the lividity, stuff like that. Airbrushing is probably a more effective way if the lividity is more strong and saturated, as airbrushing, it covers more, and it's without having to heavy pack on like cosmetics such as like foundation, things like that. So I'm going to go over some of my experiences as a funeral assistant because I see Livor Mortis all the time. I've noticed that it's very prevalent in almost every case or every body that I do receive in my care. At first I never knew what it was or what it was called, but the more I see it, the more experience I get with it. And I've noticed that if the body is cooler or if they've been sitting for longer, it is the color is not usually purple, but I've noticed it's very, very like a deep red, and sometimes you get that marbling in there with the purple and red mixed together. But yeah, I feel like livor mortis is something that needs to be talked about and discussed more. Most people, when it comes to post-mortem changes, automatically assume that decomp is like the main thing and starts automatically, but livor mortis is a very prominent physical change that happens almost immediately, right after the death has occurred. It goes hand in hand with, of course, all the other ones like algor mortis and rigor mortis. All these three tend to set in around the same time, which I've seen. But livor mortis, I think, is really important to understand. Like I said, you see it more often, literally in every case, and it's something that needs to be talked about, as there's different ways you can, cover it and stuff with when it comes to embalming. Thank you. These are my references.